Hi everyone, I am Dr. Andi. It is time for our Facebook Live. We moved our live this week to Thursday. So hopefully you're all able to log on and join. As always one of my favorite times of the week to share information, educate. That's always one of my favorite roles in Prove It. I've been an educational specialist with Prove It since the very beginning. So happy that I'm able to log on today. This will be my last live for the next few weeks. I am expecting due next Thursday. So I'll be off for a couple weeks. I'm thrilled that I'm able to join today, answer some of your questions, share some information before I'm off for a couple weeks, and Dr. Heather will be taking over some of the lives. So I will answer all of the questions that I can. Happy New Year to you guys as well. Thank you so much. I hope everyone had a fantastic holiday, fantastic New Year's. So happy New Year to all of you as well. So I will answer all of the questions that I can today. I'll get to as many as I can. Again, as I mentioned, this will be my last one for the next few weeks, and Dr. Heather will be taking over. So I'm thrilled that I'm able to come on today instead of yesterday, answer your questions, and share some information with you. I thought I would start today talking a little bit about fasting, especially with the new sort of 24-hour fast that is launching as well. So I thought I'd start a little bit about fasting. If you've listened to any of my lives, and you know that I'm a huge fan, a huge supporter of fasting in general. This year at Epic, I did talk a little bit as well about intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting in general, the benefits of intermittent fasting, how that impacts our gut health overall. So I'm a huge fan of fasting in general. Fasting is usually one of those things that I introduce to my patients sort of right off the bat at the very beginning. I find it's one of the easiest things to introduce. Some people will get a little bit sort of nervous when we talk about fasting in general. They think, how will I last if I miss a day, if I miss a meal? We've been taught that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and we now know that that was sort of flawed research, and that's not entirely accurate or true. So I'm a huge fan of the fasting. Again, those who aren't able to make significant diet changes, you can get really great results just from starting the fasting in general, introducing some ketones, and then slowly working from there. We know that with the fasting, what we're doing is turning on autophagy. And so someone's asking what kicks you out if you are doing an intermittent fast, what sort of stops you or kicks you out of the fasting. So what we're trying to do is turn on autophagy. Autophagy is the process where we're clearing out dead, damaged cells, allowing our body to regenerate and create new cells. It's a natural, innate process that happens in our body, happens again in that fasting window, starting around that 14 to 16 hour mark. So to turn on this innate healing process, we have to engage in fasting. There's also an anti-inflammatory component to that autophagy as well. And so what kicks us out of the fast is if we spike insulin. So the insulin, again, usually triggered by sugar consumption, will shut off autophagy. Things that turn on autophagy are fasting and beta-hydroxybutyrate. So in those fasting windows, I allow my patients to have ketones, because what we're trying to do is, again, create ketones. The research is showing that the benefit of fasting is likely due to the production of ketones in those fasting windows. And we have many years of research on fasting. It's been done for so long, especially for religious purposes. So we do have a lot of information and research on fasting in general. So in that fasting window, I do allow my patients to have ketones. Keto cream, I sometimes will have patients push to outside their fasting window to sort of end their fast as well, but definitely having their ketones in that fasting window. What we don't want to do is stimulate insulin. So again, when we consume glucose, that will stimulate insulin, and that will shut off the fast. Sometimes protein can do that as well. If we have too much protein, then it can convert to glucose and sort of spike or trigger that insulin. So that's why in those fasting windows, we can consume things like MCT oil, because those fats won't spike insulin and they don't shut off autophagy. So those are things that you can have if you want to have that in your coffee or something like that. It helps you feel full and satiated for a little bit longer. Helps a little bit as well with the benefits of fasting, with mental clarity and fat burning. So Again, I'm a huge fan of the fasting. I also love the fast as a prep for the longer fasting. So like those 24-hour fasts, I love as prep for sort of the reboot or more extended fast. For some people, doing the extended fasting is a little bit too much right off the bat. And so I'll often have people prep before doing a reboot by doing the 16-hour fast daily and then a 24-hour fast weekly. So just to get your body accustomed and used to what it feels like to fasting. Because again, sometimes the more extended fasting is a little bit much right off the bat. So I find it's a really great way to get you used to how it feels to fast and then to kind of kickstart whatever your goals are. So when you're drinking ketones, is it bad to be eating regular carbs like potato, rice, and pasta? So no. So I guess there are two things here. I always want to say, again, the ketogenic diet is not a zero carbohydrate diet. It's a low carbohydrate diet. Carbs are not the devil. It's not like we can never have carbohydrates at all. It's a matter of choice and making sure that we're not overdoing the carbohydrates. So yes, absolutely, you can still be consuming carbohydrates while you're consuming ketones. So that's not a problem. You can do that. What we're finding is now that we have the opportunity to present the body, we call that the dual fuel, where you have ketones and glucose on board. So now when we have this opportunity to present those two different fuel sources to the body, we're finding that the body will actually preferentially choose ketones. So brain, heart, muscle will actually preferentially choose will choose the ketones in general. So you don't have to stop eating carbohydrates. Obviously, as a doctor, I encourage my patients to reduce the carbs, and we would sort of move towards a low carbohydrate diet depending on what the goals are. For some people, that's not realistic right off the bat. So if that's not realistic for people as a start, then I often just encourage start some of the intermittent fasting with those shorter fasting windows, introduce your ketones, and then slowly move from there, because beta-hydroxybutyrate also helps impact our appetite. And so that might actually help you be able to make some of those changes down the road, and same with the fasting. So you might find that making some of those changes, reducing the carbs, becomes easier. Is there a reason why some people get tired after drinking ketones? Aren't they supposed to have energy? So for some people, what is happening is, again, ketones can act as a bit of a diuretic, same with ketogenic diet. So it might be that they're losing some of their minerals. I often say that that exogenous ketones actually show us what we're missing, some of the nutrient or mineral depletions that we might have. So if that's a case for you, if you're feeling a little bit tired after you're consuming your ketones, I would encourage you to mix it with electrolytes. So add your electrolytes in with your ketones. You can just pour the Mitoplex right in with your ketones, drink them together, and then make sure that you're staying really hydrated. Generally, when people are starting, I make sure they have really good sort of basic foundation supplements. So I want my patients on electrolytes, magnesium, a B complex, and then sometimes a multi, just depending on the patient and their sort of what their goals are. But that's usually what I want people to start with. It could also be sort of keto flu that they're experiencing. So when you introduce those nutrients and those minerals, I find that really decreases the chance of somebody experiencing some of those symptoms when they start. The intermittent fasting helped me with the 24-hour and the reboot. Oh, great. Okay, and also along with an Islamic fast of sunrise to sunset. So that's fantastic, and that's exactly right. So that's what I encourage my patients to do. Some people just can't tolerate the reboot right off the bat. It's a little bit too long for them, and so often it's helpful to prep with the shorter and the intermittent fasting. So I'm really glad that helped for you. You can drink ketones if you have high blood pressure. So again, if you have any medical condition, you have to speak to your healthcare provider. But generally, yes, the research is, so the concern is sometimes beta-hydroxybutyrate with blood pressure. Sometimes the concern is the sodium. We know that sodium has sort of been demonized in the same way that fats have been demonized. So work with your healthcare provider. Make sure that they say it's safe for you. But ketones, ketogenic diet should not increase your blood pressure. Especially the concerns are blood pressure and cholesterol when you're transitioning to a keto diet. So no, we shouldn't see increases in blood pressure. When they compare the diet, sort of caloric restriction, keto, or a low-fat diet, they actually see that the low-carb or keto diet is more effective. The research shows it's more effective in lowering blood pressure, cholesterol, waist circumference, things like that. So if you have high blood pressure, you should be able to, but again, you have to work with your healthcare provider. What should you do when you can't sleep at night? So I don't know if that means that you can't sleep at night. I don't know if that means you can't sleep at night because of ketones, or if you're just not sleeping at night in general. The ketones shouldn't be keeping you up at night. Obviously, make sure you're not taking a charged version in the evening if that's what you're taking. Some people are very caffeine sensitive. They can't have caffeine past noon in a day. So just make sure that you know if that's you or not. So I don't know if that's a general question about not being able to sleep or if that's specific to ketones. If you don't sleep at night in general, there are so many things that you have to look into there. It's not always about just taking something to kind of knock you out. You have to figure out what's going on. Is it stress? Is it anxiety? Do you have high cortisol levels? So there are a lot of other things that could be contributing to why you're not sleeping in the evening, and you really have to figure that out. I'm a big fan of sleep tracking. I love the Oura Ring, so tracking your sleep, making sure that you're getting deep sleep, restorative sleep. So sleep is a much bigger question than that. But we do actually the research shows that beta-hydroxybutyrate might actually be helpful for sleep in general, because it actually encourages the production of GABA, which is a very calming neurotransmitter. It's also linked to serotonin, which is something that helps to regulate our mood. So if you're somebody who suffers a little bit from anxiety, so that may also be helpful for you as well. But it's really important to figure out, what it is exactly that's disrupting your sleep and why you're not sleeping. But ketones in general shouldn't disrupt your sleep overall, if it's the caffeine-free version. Do we have to have the protein snack at the midday? So yes, you'd want the protein sort of midday, not in the morning. You don't want to interrupt that morning fast, so you want to have it midday or later. So you want to make sure that you're not disrupting some of the again, that fasting window. Keto and insomnia, I just touched on that. Okay, perfect. So you have a customer whose blood pressure went up with ketones. Any other explanation? So the only other thing I would say about blood pressure is, again, to make sure that that person doesn't have a sodium sensitivity. That's the only time that I'm concerned about sodium, if someone is genetically predisposed to a sodium sensitivity. Otherwise, there's nothing in that should increase blood pressure overall. So I would ask them to look at other lifestyle factors. Did other things happen that might have triggered or spiked their blood pressure a little bit? What else is going on in their lifestyle? Is there more stress, etc.? So you have to look at other factors as well that contribute. But in general, no, ketones should not spike blood pressure. I would also take a look at which type they're taking. Is it charged or decaf, and maybe switch to the decaf version. Might be a little bit too much caffeine for them. That might be spiking some blood pressure as well, because often people are still having, if they're coffee drinkers, they're still having coffee and then ketones on top of that, which can be more caffeine than you're used to in a day. So that's also something to consider. So I would just look at a few factors like that, switch to the decaf version, or cut back on coffee and take the charged version, and then look if there are other lifestyle look and see if there are other lifestyle factors that might have been contributing. So you're drinking ketones, eating low carbs, and you're down 10 pounds. That's fantastic. What could be causing PM stomach cramping? So that's a big question as well. I would probably ask for some clarifying information there. So I don't know if that's stomach cramping after you consume ketones, or you're just having stomach cramps in the evening in general. Digestion plays a really big role in our overall health. So I think you need to do a bit of more of an in-depth analysis of what's happening. So if it's right after having your ketones, then I would say you should either reduce your serving a little bit, maybe half a sachet, and maybe just sort of split it up in the day until your body is more adapted. It doesn't sound like that's what it is, because you don't mention that the cramping is right after ketones. So I would probably start looking into a few other things to see what else might be causing some of the cramping. But again, if it is related to ketones, then I would just cut your serving down a little bit. So start with half a sachet and then slowly work up and then slowly work up to the full serving and see if that makes a difference. But there are a lot of other things that can contribute, obviously, to cramping. You have to look into your microbiome. Is there SIBO? So there are a lot of questions around digestion. Are you constipated? Diarrhea? You've got to look at a lot of other things that might need to be addressed. I'm having trouble swallowing the Signal S capsules. Can I open them and mix the ingredients in my nat? You can, but that might not taste very good. So yes, you can open capsules. I usually encourage, when people need to open a capsule, I usually encourage them to put it in a smoothie. Opening capsules, because again, when you encapsulate, you don't get the flavor of what it is that you're swallowing. Will probably not taste great if you do that. So if you do want to break open capsules, I would suggest doing that in a smoothie or something like that later in the day to try and mask some of that taste. But yes, that is something common that patients will mention to me. Something that patients will mention to me, that sometimes they can't swallow capsules. So we do break things open, but it's just a matter of tolerating their taste. Is there a benefit of taking the charged over the non-caffeinated version? So no, not with the nat. So you can take charged or uncharged. Some people like the caffeine, some people don't. So it just means you get some of the benefits of caffeine as well. We know that caffeine is also a really great antioxidant, can help fuel workouts and things like that as well, but you will still get the same benefit from the BHB whether you're taking charged or not. So don't be concerned about that. You will still get the same benefit from the ketones in your drink. More info on pregnancy and breastfeeding, charged and decaf. Okay, so pregnancy and breastfeeding. So we actually got this question at Epic, obviously because I'm pregnant, I get that question a ton right now. So ketones, so first thing, ketones are approved for adults 18 and over. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, you have to ask your healthcare provider. You have to make sure that your healthcare provider says that this is safe for you to take. I personally drink ketones while pregnant and while breastfeeding, but I know that that's because that's sort of what works for me. And in my pregnancy, every pregnancy is different. So we can't make a blanket statement saying, yes, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, take it. You can't say that. All pregnancies are so different. Every woman has a different experience through pregnancy. Your body is doing different things. Are you high risk? Are there underlying factors going on? So you have to work with your healthcare provider and make sure that they are saying that that's safe for you. Charged versus decaf while pregnant or breastfeeding, that's also a choice. Some women prefer to completely eliminate caffeine while pregnant. The research shows that around 200 milligrams of caffeine in a day is safe. So sort of like a cup of coffee or two, sort of 1 to 2 cups of coffee in a day is safe for a woman while pregnant or breastfeeding. So that's a personal choice. Again, so some caffeine in lower amounts, so 400 milligrams is generally where people want to stay in a day overall, pregnant or not. 200 milligrams is generally the recommendation while pregnant. So if you wanted to do a serving of charged in a day, you should be fine. But again, that's a choice. If you're concerned and you've been approved to take ketones, then I would, and you're concerned, that I would take the decaf version. Is there a cheap way to get electrolytes? So yes, there are always cheaper way to get your electrolytes or your fluids in. You can do things like coconut water or broth. Broth is a really great way to do that as well. You can make your own bone broth, or you can do it in an Instapot, which takes a little bit less time as well. So you can get lots of great electrolytes in coconut water. You can get it in broth. Some of my patients, depending on their health condition, of having them drink pure Himalayan salt and water with some lemon in the morning just to get some of that sodium into their system. So yes, there are other ways to get your electrolytes and your fluids in that don't involve taking another supplement, because some patients are on a ton of supplements already. Then we add in ketones, and adding in electrolytes is just a little bit too much for them. So I'm encouraging them to do the coconut water and the broths and things like that to get some of those electrolytes in. Will you still get the same benefit if you only drink the caffeine-free one? I touched on that a little bit earlier. So just rewind a little bit, and I do touch a little bit on that as well. If we use the Keto Pro, do we still need to add some collagen? I like to add some additional collagen. I'm a big fan of collagen in general. So I like to add a little bit of extra collagen, so I'll often just mix an extra scoop of collagen just in my coffee or something like that, sort of midday. So I like to add a little bit of additional collagen, but I would say that that's a choice just depending on your personal or your specific needs. Oh, no problem about answering your question about breaking the capsules open. Yes, give it a try. If it tastes horrible, then you know that you'll have to go back to trying to find a way to swallow some of that capsule. Fatigue after ketones, so I touched on that already as well. And then more about swallowing the capsules. You add it to yogurt or a fruit smoothie. That's perfect. That's all you need to do. You can also try, adding it to yogurt or something like that as well. Again, it's going to be a taste issue. So it's just a matter of whether or not you can tolerate the taste when you break the capsule open. Can ketones help my metabolism? So I'm assuming that we're gearing this question more towards kind of a fat loss, weight loss goal. Will it help your metabolism? So yes, so the research has shown that beta-hydroxybutyrate can accelerate fat loss. When we talk about that, I always like to emphasize or specify that ketones are not a weight loss supplement, but they can assist with fat loss in general overall as a secondary benefit. So what they're doing to our appetite, so the impact it has on leptin and ghrelin, so the hormones that say I'm full or I'm hungry. So the hormones that it's impacting there, the impact it has on insulin sensitivity, our blood glucose levels, and then it has been shown to enhance or accelerate fat loss as well. So again, I always like when we talk about this weight loss, a lot of people will always say, well, no, I'm not seeing the fat loss. This person lost 20 pounds in a month and I didn't. And I always want to emphasize that it's so specific. And so each person comes from a different metabolic state, a different metabolic background. So how quickly your body is going to lose fat is very dependent on where you're coming from. So some people might have disordered eating habits that they're coming from, and your metabolism is just kind of all over the place. And so they might not see the changes that they're looking for right away. It's just so individualized. I always tell people to, just be patient. There are things happening internally that maybe you can't see. So just be very, very patient. And, it's not always about the number on the scale. Make sure you're doing body composition, looking at your actual fat mass versus muscle mass, and look at those changes, how your clothing fits, and not so much the number that's coming on the scale as well. Can we add lemon juice to the broth? Sure. If you want to add lemon juice, you can do that. So that's not a problem. If you want to, if you want to do that, that's no problem at all. Oh my goodness, that is all of our time today, everybody. That flew by. As always, it always flies by so quickly. So hopefully I got to all of your questions. I'm so happy I was able to jump on today and answer. As I said at the beginning, I'm delivering my second next Thursday, so I'm a week away, and then I'll be off a little bit for the next few weeks, and Dr. Heather will be covering for me just while I adapt to my second little one. But I'm already looking forward to sort of jumping back on and answering all of your questions. So thank you for joining today, everybody. Have an incredible week. Enjoy the next few weeks as well. And then I will be back on shortly after I welcome this new little one. So thanks so much for joining, and stay safe, stay healthy, everyone.